The rhythm of healing, the octaves method. O is for observation, through stillness we find meditation and breath work that quiet the mind. In silence we listen, the answers are clear, awareness emerges, dissolving the fear. C is for compassion, for self and for all, embracing the good, the struggles, the fall. With kindness we grow, we nurture, we mend, learning to love ourselves as we extend. T is for therapy, a path we explore. Daily we practice unlocking the door. From journaling to mindfulness, healing begins. Each step is a victory as peace settles in. A is for animals and laughter so bright, like children at a play, their joy taking flight. With playfulness and movement, we rediscover the way to heal through the fun that we often delay. V is for victuals, nourishing and pure, detoxifying the body and keeping us sure. We choose what we eat with intention and grace, fueling our journey at our own pace. E is for exercise, where movement is free. We stretch and we bend in sweet harmony. Flexibility grows with choices we make. In strength and in stillness, our bodies awake. S is for socialize, where self-growth begins. Others reflect our triggers and the places within. Through relationships, our true selves we find, growing and healing with each tie that binds. The octaves method, where all behavior makes sense. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 5 of the Trauma and Social Work Podcast. I am KJ Alexander here with my co-host, Tonya Octave, and today we have a lot of important information to dive into. But before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and let Tonya tell a little bit more about herself and what this podcast is about.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tonya Octave, and we are going into Season 5 of Trauma and Social Work Podcasts, where we will be discussing and diving deep into my book called Healthymind, 7 Strategies Towards Mental Wellness, Happiness, and Success, Exploring Trauma, Mental Wellness, and Ways to Live a More Balanced Life. And before we begin, just a simple reminder that this podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not intended for medical, psychological, mental health, or legal advice. Although I'm a licensed professional, this is not a formal type of treatment. We may talk about things like hypnosis and meditation and things that we would do in a therapeutic, from a therapeutic perspective, but it's not a form of treatment. For individual questions about your wellness, your happiness, and your success, please seek out a professional. And if you are experiencing a mental health crisis, do call 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.
Great, awesome. That was amazing. So with that being said, I want to make sure I tell the audience, if you haven't already, follow this page on Spotify, YouTube, and any other platforms we post episodes on. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming episodes in the future. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. This is the Trauma and Social Work Podcast. My name is KJ Alexander, joined once again with my co-host, Tonya Octave. And this episode, we're continuing our discussion on victuals. And picking up where we left off last time, we're going to continue this discussion talking about herbs. So
If you wouldn't mind, I would like to read a section from the book regarding herbs. So,
Okay.
an herb is a plant with leaves, seeds, or flowers used for medicine, food, or flavoring. Herbs are used worldwide and can serve as a medical option, Natural medicines work with the skin, the heart, nervous, immune, circulatory, respiratory, endocrine, digestive, urinary, and musculoskeletal systems. Well, that's a word. A complete nutritional assessment is needed depending on you and your holistic practitioner. You can consume herbs in tea, pills, or a liquid applied to the skin or through the nasal passages. Remember to always seek out a trained expert in the field before beginning an herbal treatment protocol. Using herbs in general promotes balanced nutrition. Herbs are used as medicine, treating many conditions: blood vessels, heart, circulation, lymph nodes, the tissues, hair, bone, skin, joints, and muscle, the endocrine system, the nervous system, and urinary tract, brain, thymus, pancreas, kidneys, bladder, adrenal glands, and central nervous system.
It's
And the
like a medical book, huh?
yeah, for sure, for sure. A lot of terminology.
At least a basic introduction medical book.
Right, absolutely. And the digestive system and respiratory tract, liver, gallbladder, lung, stomach, intestines, ears, eyes, and mouth. So I remember first when I first read that section, I was pleasantly surprised that there were so many use cases for herbs. And I guess my general understanding at first was just that there were some benefits to herbs, but I just wasn't sure to what exact extent the benefits expanded to. So I wonder if you can kind of break down for our audience, what herbs do you personally like to use? Are there any herbs you use more than others? And if you can share that with our audience, I think that would be great.
I definitely will. And I think what you said is really important that when, you first think about maybe herbs, you think about like maybe your mom putting some stuff possibly on a meal. Maybe if you're Italian, maybe you're familiar with basil or thyme, or depending on your cultural exposure, then you were introduced to maybe herbs, but never really kind of like, oh, herbs are actually used in terms of treatment. Yeah, there are medical facilities outside of the US. For some reason, the US doesn't offer that. I definitely have some thoughts and opinions about that. Um, but that people go for trainings for all sorts of issues and concerns, from things like pain and inflammation in the body to glaucoma, things as serious as things like that. Even with sickle cell treatment, like I have come across, there have been some herbal treatments that people have used in terms of treatment for things like that, and things that we are very familiar with in the West, ADHD and autism. And so when I started exploring herbs, I'm like, this is beautiful. But there, with that exploration comes, just because it comes from the earth doesn't mean that it cannot destroy certain things. So, although there is a curiosity about herbs, there are safer herbs than others. So, this isn't about like, let's go eat some random mushrooms as we're walking without really knowing some of the details of what each particular herb may be.
Mm.
I do get asked this a lot in terms of what could help me um, with my depression, or what could kind of help support my overall mood. And so when I think about your overall mood and how to balance it out, one, adding an herb, just like adding a medication, in some ways is still not getting to the root of the problem. The idea is that the body is manifesting, let's say, an inflammation for a reason, and it's probably protective. It's protecting the body The white cells go to that particular area in the body so that it could heal. It's just sometimes we overexert this machine in terms of the healing capacity. So herbs can be a smooth way to kind of, for example, balance the mood, but know that your body is also talking to you and telling you a message. And the idea is to get to the root of that, not to just keep putting something on to mask it. So some really safe herbs, ashwagandha. I found that to be very helpful. It is an adaptogen, and it really helps to regulate that release of cortisol. I noticed that when I take ashwagandha, I take it in a blend of some other herbs, but ashwagandha is one of those, that it really keeps my heart rate variability high. And so that's
Yeah.
a good indication that for me, I have to monitor that cortisol output because I want to conserve it. I've exerted too much cortisol in my life.
Mm.
Another herb that I like is lemon balm. I love to grow that herb. It is very calming. It's to the mind. It helps relieve the anxious thoughts. It smells great. You can grow it in your backyard. It's also potentially a deterrent for mosquitoes. And so if you're growing it, you know kind of how it's sourced. So you don't have to necessarily worry about organic other than getting really good, high quality seeds to start with. But then you can go out to your garden and clip off some and put it in a meal or make a tea with it or just eat
Hmm.
it directly. It might be a little bitter to get used to if you eat it directly from the leaf.
Yeah.
Passion flower is also another great herb in terms of supporting relaxation. And that's also been known in some studies to really be helpful for when you feel like your minds and your thoughts are overwhelming, that there's a lot of chatter going on. It helps to kind of calm those thoughts down. Tulsi, also known as a holy basil, has also been known to, in terms of its immune supportive factors and balancing the mood. And then a lot of people are familiar with chamomile. So that usually people will get that in a tea, and it's a really a gentle way to just reduce tension and anxiety and really promote this restful sleep. If we lived in a society where the marketing industry was more honest about their food, they would depict of a guy who had a long day at work and was constantly busy and working his body and sweating and it's hot outside and then he goes home and he's greeted by his family so he feels like a member of the family and he sits down after all the kids have settled into the night and then it's him and his wife or nowadays maybe him and his husband and they're sitting down and they're having a nice warm chamomile tea versus a cold beer. We really need to change the way that we think about these things. Chamomile is going to get us to that place of being restful. Beer that typically has wheat in it is going to cause more inflammation in the body because the body once again will have to work harder to try to relieve those things. So just even thinking about the mind and how the mind is conditioned, how we have to maybe come back to some of these beautiful things that were given to us from Mother Nature.
Hmm.
um, when I think specifically of depression, I have a specific protocol for people when they want to work on using herbs to help with symptoms associated with maybe a traumatic response, and they're noticing symptoms of depression and anxiety arising. So I may say like a St. John's wort or a rhodiola, which really kind of helps out with that fatigue. It also, this is a little bit more in the Asian, but saffron. There's really a lot of benefits that have come out in terms of research of its mood lifting benefits. And saffron can be kind of expensive when you purchase it. And so I've learned ways to only a little bit goes a long way. And so you can mix it in soups or You can lay it like on a bed of greens, like warm greens, like cooked greens, things like that. So you
Okay.
can get that into your diet in that way. And then there's things that definitely help with brain focus. You can do your herbs and teas or infusions. Some people might, opt for tinctures or herbal extracts. I've been seeing this thing lately in the marketing, where there are little tonics that you can buy, and it appears
Mm.
to be a mix of something sweet and sugar, something of a tea with some herb blend in it. And
Mm.
so that there are different ways to maybe think of coming up with your own herbal recipes. You can add them in salads and smoothies, even cooked dishes, sprinkling them on top. Once you heat herbs, you have to kind of be mindful what happens in the cooking process in terms of how it changes the healing capacities when you digest it. But aside from that, you can even get them in powders and you can add them to like protein shakes. If
Yeah.
all else fails, you can get it in a supplement form and then ingest it that way. There's even like, well, I'll get into that a little bit when I talk about supplements. So there's different ways of kind of getting it into the body. Think about your senses. So how we experience the world is through our senses. So, what we see, what we hear, what we feel on our skin. Think about it. When you were a baby, you learned how to experience the world when you were one through your senses. So, if you heard mommy yelling in the other room, that sound might have made you startle a little bit. If it was a common practice and mom commonly yells, you may have dismissed it as it's just the same thing. Or when mom yells, maybe that was the excitement that arose in your body because you knew you were getting ready to do something fun. So then you kind of like chip her up. You're like, yay, or something like that, in terms of being excited with the nonverbal expression. So we think about it in terms of our senses. So, how can I really embody herbs? Smell. I can get sprays. I can put them. I don't necessarily big on lotions and things like that, but if you like sprayed your hand, you can smell it.
Hmm.
You can actually take like lemon balm and crush it up like this
Mm.
and just put it on your skin. That's what I did with neem. So usually when I travel to places where there are mosquitoes, I do two things. I double down on my garlic.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks before I travel, because I don't know, those little mosquitoes love my blood or something. 2 weeks before I travel, I'll double down on my garlic, and then I will implement a fermented garlic protocol 2 days before leaving to cut down on the smell while traveling. Then I will use neem and I'll take the plant and I'll rub it against, I'll crush up the leaves. Sometimes I'll just let the leaves just sit. They're actually good in terms of they're antiviral. So I'll just let them sit in my mouth so that they can be absorbed in the bloodstream through the teeth. I'll do teas and a lot of bitters. And that has led to my success, other than what I've done in the past with the sprays and the lotions and all of that.
Mm.
The underlying issue was the mosquitoes like my blood. I can put topical things on it to avoid the bite, and that may work for some. But when I began talking, I said, well, why do they like my blood? Is my blood too sweet? Which means, is there something going on with my insulin? Do I have too much sugar in my body? Because they don't like bitter blood, they like sweet blood. So then
Yeah.
I need to be aware of. So instead, that's why I say sometimes when we put the topical on, we can go about our day, we can enjoy our time, without mosquitoes, but we're forgetting to go back to the why. And so that is a reminder to me to work on my blood. My blood needs to be alkaline and not pleasing for mosquitoes,
Yeah.
which means it's a little bitter. And I found out through my years and through reading a lot and through actual just practice, garlic and neem really work. And
Yeah.
so those, what are your thoughts about that? Because I know a younger generation may feel differently about herbs. And also my generation above me has more of a higher level of appreciation for
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. So I'll just say, like, from everyday life perspective, the only real interaction I would have with herbs would be like, let's say Arizona iced tea would have some ginseng and honey, right? So those would be kind of like the only products I would buy with herbs in it. Now, those products also do have a lot of sugar and other things that may not be as healthy, but I just to make a connection with the herb itself, that's kind of like how I see it. But then also when it comes to like cooking, I'm big on Italian seasoning and things like that. So I think a lot of times people use herbs, but then they'll pair it with something that is a little bit less healthy, like heavy carbs or like
Mhm.
things like that. So I think it's really interesting you mentioned that, you can apply the herb, on your skin, and you don't necessarily have to ingest it to get the maximum benefits from it. So yeah, I think it is important, and there's so many herbs in general that it can be kind of overwhelming when deciding where to start. But I think it's a good place to just start with what you know first, and then you can kind of explore from there different types of herbs and find what works for you, what doesn't work, and yeah, I think that's a good place to start.
And most places will have, wherever you live, you'll have your familiar herbs. Like, I don't know why we don't talk about thyme a lot, especially in
Yeah,
terms of how it is associated with decreasing symptoms of people who suffer with PTSD. It is
mm,
like
yeah,
amazing in terms of how it works with the brain chemistry to help minimize someone's suffering. That means I could grow thyme. I could go out to my garden. I could just pick it, put it in my mouth, or put it in my salad. These little spike things, however I would describe it, and just eat it.
yeah,
Um, so I would say start off what is familiar. So you go to the grocery store or the farmer's market. See what are, like, most people know, like in California, like parsley. Most people know kind of what I got so many here. Kind of like what a parsley looks like. Uh, like these little green things. It comes
okay,
in a bigger bunch.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
And the thing with pairing is, okay, so yeah, you are out and you are eating your pasta with sauce and garlic bread and cheese. And so you're eating your meal that is very dairy filled. I'm still okay if you add some parsley because I feel like the green is going to help do something because of all that craziness you just put in your body.
Yeah,
And so it's for me, I'm never about like wanting to judge you because I know I was there and I know in terms of how the food industry has drawn us in. So, like, I get
yeah,
that part. The part is if you have that meal, what kind of green thing can you add to it? Just even the example with the beer. How do you use herbs to balance out yeast in the gut once you ingest it? So, if you're going to, want to stay on the American diet, it might be worth considering what, and I'm going to say green, what green vegetables or herbs that you can have to help with that detoxification process. Um, because the other alternative is you're still having the spaghetti with the garlic bread and the Parmesan cheese and all of that stuff, carb
yeah,
loaded. You're still having that, but at least if you added something green, hopefully it will have some balance. And then we'll talk about supplements in a couple of episodes about how to even balance with supplements so that you can build the body. Hopefully at some point in your life you make a decision to want to move towards a different diet outside of the American diet, but right now you use what you are where you are. And so how can you add herbs. You mentioned something like you might buy a drink and it
Yeah.
might have ginseng in it. Um, One thing that I think might be great, ginseng, there's two forms that I'm aware of. Um, and with ginseng, it's really good for adrenal support. Your adrenals are what helps to regulate, it's part of the endocrine system.
Hmm.
It's what it does to help regulate the release and the control of cortisol,
Okay.
among so many other hormones in the body, in terms of how it corresponds with the pituitary and the hypothalamus and all of that.
Hmm.
So, if you can take ginseng, it is actually repairing the adrenal repair. And I know that because I know a little bit about your body and the makeup of that. So for our audience, if you were thinking about it, like there are other things to consider. We have to rule out allergies and other food sensitivities, things like that. But I know that you can take ginseng and that it is going to help your adrenals. So you could do your warm herbal tea in the morning, maybe like a chamomile or passion flower, a fourth of a powder form of ginseng. Put it in there, mix it in. I would actually do another fourth of something green, like a daily green or something like that, or
Okay.
a parsley blend or a green juice, like a wheat juice blend. Because in powder form, you're not going to necessarily taste it when it's mixed in the herbal tea, and the powder form will dissolve for the most part.
Okay.
I have some powder stuff in me, and sometimes it floats to the top, but for the most part, it'll dissolve, and you can maybe have to spin it a little faster. Like that happens with my cinnamon sometimes because I use cinnamon in powder form in my drinks. So that might be what you can do when you're at home. And then when you're out, that's way better than getting soda. So it's like a win-win.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important what you mentioned earlier, and you do a great job in your book as well, is mentioning the effects of these herbs and what they can help treat, because I think that's something that needs to be highlighted a lot more.
Mhm.
Because you hear all the time, oh, take your herbs, eat your vegetables. And I think the reason why sometimes that information isn't taken as well is because they aren't highlighting the exact reason why, or the because why you should take this herb and what it does, what it can help treat. So, and I think
Well,
once we
why is
highlight that
that?
more,
Why do you think that is? This is what
um,
young people have to start questioning. Why is it that they're not telling you about parsley?
yeah, or if they are telling you about it, they may not necessarily tell you the exact health benefits of what that and other herbs can do. So, yeah, I think it's important to highlight that for sure.
So, what messages do you feel young people get about herbs in general?
Um, Not a lot, if any, and usually it's paired with
Not
something
a
that,
lot.
yeah, usually it's paired with something that is not as healthy, but they'll throw a herb in there just to make it seem like it's a healthy alternative to whatever else is on the market. When it may not be. It may be a healthy herb, but it still may not be the right choice for that individual.
So, young people really have to think about. I can tell you, there's one herb that all young people know, and that's the marijuana plant. All
Yeah,
young people know
yeah,
that
for
one
sure.
herb. And when I say herb, they're like, oh, they may even make the assumption that's what I'm talking about. There's hundreds of thousands of other herbs out there that even have different types of effect. And not that I definitely think the marijuana plant has its place in medicine. It's not the only herb that has its place in medicine. There are so many other herbs. So when you're feeling, oh, I think it's like, oh, I have back pain. So I go to my bud tender. I think that's what they're called. I go
Yeah,
to my
yeah.
bud tender and they say, give me this type of strand. That's not the only thing. It's just that marijuana has been known for this particular thing, but there are other herbs out there that helps with inflammation. I mean, like high doses of turmeric, curcumin is like an amazing one that doesn't maybe have some of the other side effects that someone may not be looking for. There are things in terms of calming the mind. So people might go to their bud tender to talk about, I have anxiety. Can you help calm me? That may be an option, but it's not the only option. Um, Kava is amazing for controlling anxiety, yet it is not recommended or even talked about with your primary doctor. Your primary doctor talks about Xanax. And so like when you go to the doctor, that may be the thing to know that you are being given one option. This is my thought about trauma. We are all traumatized, and we're living in a world of being traumatized because we are only given one option and we believe that to be the only option. And that leads to generations and generations of black and white thinking like there's no other possibilities. I don't say nothing bad about marijuana. I just say it's not the only option. There are other options. Just like if you go to your doctor says one medication. That's traumatizing because you're not telling me that there's actually four other possibilities, even in the medication realm. Why is it always Xanax or always the generic brand of Xanax? This is where clearing the throat chakra, asking those questions, being curious. This is your body. You get one. God gave us one body here in the physical realm. And do we want to give that to the people who we are told are experts? You are the expert. You, KJ, are the expert of your body. Me, Tonya, I am the expert of my body. And I need to question everybody else when they want to make recommendations, including myself. Question whether or not ginseng is going to work for you. Because if you have the allergy, it's probably not a good thing. It's going to cause more inflammation. So you got to get some testing done. Or you can do a process of elimination if you have limitations with money. So, like, there's always a way to heal.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And you mentioned earlier you had mentioned some cooked vegetables, and you also mentioned that in your book you have a section regarding raw versus cooked vegan foods. And I'd like to read a little bit from that book, so from that section rather. So, raw vegetables are unprocessed vegetables that have not been heated over 104 to 118 degrees Fahrenheit. Experts disagree about the temperature. Eating vegetables raw helps to maintain their enzymes and enhance their nutritional value, which helps restore the intestinal wall. In addition, consuming raw vegetables and other foods increases the amount of fiber intake. The raw category includes all raw fruits/vegetables, nuts, seeds, soaked, sprouts, root vegetables, and squashes, herbs, and spices, and seaweeds. Raw foods can be dehydrated, juiced, blended, soaked, or sprouted. Research indicates that eating raw vegetables can reduce the risk of diabetes, help with weight loss, maintain a healthy weight for body configuration, and improve digestion. In addition, it provides optimal levels of folate and water soluble vitamins. Cooked vegetables can soften the indigestible cellulose, releasing nutrients which may not occur with raw vegetables. Examples are carrots and tomatoes. In addition, the softened fiber of cooked vegetables release vitamin E and K and facilitate better mineral absorption. So it seems like there are positives and negatives to both cooked and raw vegan foods. So I wonder if you can kind of speak on, in your personal experience, what do you find is better for you personally? And what would you recommend for somebody who is just starting to discover their interest for vegetables and vegan food items? Would you recommend they start with purely raw vegan or some raw, some cooked? How would you go about that?
Well, I always recommend adding something green to every meal so that at least every time you're eating something, you're getting something green into the body to start supporting cellular repair. The other part is maybe start with the balance. Start with eating more cooked vegetables and eating more raw vegetables. The challenge is you might have an aversion to one or the other, or you might find more drawn to one or the other. But don't let your mind limit you. Um, I'm not completely a raw vegan, but a lot of my meals consist of raw vegan preparation.
Yeah.
And there are some amazing things. There are amazing chefs out there. There are amazing nutritional scientists out there in terms of how you can combine foods to get optimal nutrition. So there's some beautiful ways to make things. And really, you could have the same experience with a healthy version of the food. So you could still make pastas healthy using raw, using cooked, using a mixture of raw and cooked. Like you can do both. You can see what draws your attention. The one thing that I like about this particular thing today is, if I have a lot of clients going on today and maybe I need to have some snacks during my eating hours, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have a plate of green things. So I'll have like some cucumbers and bell peppers and
Okay.
some raw broccoli. And um, these are actually a white, it's a root. And what I did with these is it's daikon, and I sliced them very thin. And I put a little bit of herb seasoning on them and put them in the oven to toast them a little bit so I could have a little crunchy taste. And then I
Okay.
just have like some celery with some almond butter. Sometimes I'll put some
Mm.
craisins on it if I want something sweet. But this is like what I call part of like I could do this. I would have a little root there.
Okay. And that's all raw vegan, correct? Or no, you
Yeah.
did cook the
The
root a little
hummus
bit.
is a yes. Sometimes the hummus isn't if you buy it at the store or versus if you make it your own. And for me, I feel like this is like a little cucumber sandwich.
Yes, it's a nice little snack you got there. So just correct
And
me if
then you can just kind of see it
yeah, yeah, for sure.
and then you would have it. And this is a healthy snack that takes a couple of seconds to still nourish the body that you can ingest. Wraps up another episode. I hope today's discussion provided clarity and tools you can use in your daily life. If you're ready to take the next step in the healing journey, I'd love to connect. Head over to my website to schedule a free 15-minute consultation. It is a great opportunity to ask questions and see how we can work together. And while you're there, download my complimentary workbook designed to help you reflect, grow, and move towards mental wellness, happiness, and success. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next time. The Rhythm of Healing, the Octaves Method. O is for observation, through stillness we find meditation and breath work that quiet the mind. In silence we listen, the answers are clear, awareness emerges, dissolving the fear. C is for compassion, for self and for all, embracing the good, the struggles, the fall. With kindness we grow, we nurture, we mend, learning to love ourselves as we extend. T is for therapy, a path we explore. Daily we practice unlocking the door. From journaling to mindfulness, healing begins. Each step is a victory as peace settles in. A is for animals and laughter so bright, like children at play, their joy taking flight. With playfulness and movement, we rediscover the way to heal through the fun that we often delay. V is for victuals, nourishing and pure, detoxifying the body and keeping us sure. We choose what we eat with intention and grace, fueling our journey at our own pace. E is for exercise, where movement is free. We stretch and we bend in sweet harmony. Flexibility grows with choices we make in strength and in stillness. Our bodies awake. S is for socialize, where self-growth begins. Others reflect our triggers and the places within. Through relationships, our true selves we find, growing and healing with each tie that binds. The Octaves method, where all behavior makes sense. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents.